if you're trying to initiate your work or trying to work on any topic, first is the important thing is that you need to understand what is already been done in that topic. So you have to understand what is already known before knowing what is unknown. So first you need to understand what is already known in that topic. Then you can identify what needs to be known, what is unknown. So literature review is just trying to fill or bridge the gap between known and unknown. So before understanding your topic, it is important for us to evaluate the research that is already been done in that particular topic. So here, if you see, when we are talking about literature review, the literature and when you're talking about literature review, here there's some of the important things that you should understand before going through the topic literature review. Why it is important, why we do literature review before starting or working on any topic. So here, if you understand first thing that we need to understand, it give you the idea about that particular topic, what is already known. If I'm working on, suppose I'm working on gender discrimination or women empowerment, so these topics are already been much explored topics. So we need to understand what previous literature or what previous you can say research has already done in this particular topic. Then we try to identify what is or not known, what further needs to we need to explore further. So literature review just try to identify the gap in the existing knowledge. That means that means, as I already told you, that it fills the gap between known and the unknown. So here, before doing literature, before starting our work, we need to understand how the work has been already been explored by different researchers. So when we are talking about literature review, it is very important for us to understand the relevance of it, why we are doing it, why it is important. So it is important because here we want to understand what is already unknown, what is the research gap in it, and what are the other researchers, you can say previous researchers, such as we were talking about women empowerment, gender discrimination. So what works already been done in this particular topic. So to just to avoid the repetition in that topic, you can say the main purpose of research is to add new ideas in the knowledge. So here, to explore new ideas, you need to understand what is already been done. So what we do in research and literature review, we need to understand what is known and what needs to be done, what is unknown. So that we can work on that particular area and give a new insight, or you can say a new knowledge to that particular research. So basically the research literature review start within the 4 steps. This first we start searching. If I have any topic with me, such as you can say cyberbullying. So if I have this topic, first I need to understand what work already been done on that topic. So to understand this example, or you can say understand what cyberbullying is, how the concept is already been defined, what aspects have already been explored, we start searching. So first is you need to search, then you need to identify. Not if you type simple keywords related to cyberbullying on Google also, you have lots of literature related to that particular topic that will reflect on your Windows screen. Now here you have lots of research there, but all of them are not relevant. So here you need to identify which paper is very relevant for me. Then in those paper, you have to select those paper which is basically fulfilling your needs, research needs. So suppose I'm talking about cyberbullying, and I am looking at how cyberbullying is influencing, what influence or what impact it has on the society in different perspective. So I am looking at different perspective, no, I will select the cyberbullying topic from those perspective which I have chosen as my research topic. Next is synthesizing. Then we will try to synthesize it We will read the research, we will try to combine the ideas, connect the ideas. So let's discuss it in much detail. So we start with searching. So first thing for literature review that we do is to search. So for this, what we search? So suppose we are studying about gender discrimination, we just search all the relevant information regarding gender discrimination from different sources such as journal article, book, conferences, and from the different databases such as you can say Scopus Web of Science or Google Scholar. So how we will do search? How we try to do search? So for the searching a particular topic, what we do, we try to identify certain keywords certain such as here example that is given. If you want to want to search about cyber security in online examination, we try to type certain keywords on Google Scholar, or you can say on Web of Science databases or Scopus databases such as cyber security, online examination, digital assessment. So all the keywords that we are going to study in that particular area, we are going to do search on the basis of those keywords. Now, next is after you search, you have different paper that is reflected on your window screen. Numerous number of papers is reflected on your window screen. Now, after that search, you need to identify the papers, the articles which are relevant for your research topic. Now, suppose I have find out 500 articles. Now, after reading the title and abstract, you find that 200 are about online education, 150 are about cyber security, and 50 are directly related to cyber security in online examination. Now, here the researcher identifies if I'm working on cyber security in online examination, here the researcher identifies that only these 50 papers are relevant for my studies. So I am supposed to study not all 200 papers that are related to online education or 150 papers that are related to cyber security, but I will study only the 50 papers that are directly related to cyber security in online examination. Now here the filter applies. That means in 500 paper, you have identified 50 relevant studies. And next is selecting. Now here you have 50 paper. Now in these 50 paper, some papers are not of very good quality. Some paper maybe not be very relevant for your study. So you need to select the publications on the which is very, you can say, which is fulfilling your needs. Now how are you going to select it? So you need to select it on the basis of recent publication must be there. That means we are not, if I am studying something in gender discrimination or cyber security in online education in 2026, I will not study the paper that was published before 2015. So last 10 years paper or a decade paper is important or relevant for you. So recent publication, we basically focus on recent publication. That second thing that is important, that paper must be peer reviewed, must be based on reliable data and has certain relevance to your research. Now here in this 50 articles that you have identified for your study, that is cyber security in online education, 20 are old and outdated. You find the subs that out of 50, you can say 20 article is published before 2015. Now, 10 are not peer reviewed, 20 meet all the criteria. Now, whatever criteria you have made here for the selection of the article, that is recent publication, peer reviewed journals, reliable data. Now, all these 20 criteria is fulfilled by the 20 articles. So, here you have identified 20 articles for your literature review. Now, what are you doing? You are filtering the paper on the basis of your need, on the basis of your objective, on the basis of the relevance of the paper, you are just filtering it out. Now, next is you have 20 papers with you. Now, what are you going to do with those 20 papers? So, with those 20 papers, your need is to, you are supposed to study all these 20 papers and find out different type of opinions and ideas that is basically reflecting in those papers. Now how you will do this? So first you study and try to collect all the information that is given in those 20 papers. Then you try to compare them. That means you try certain similarity, certain agreement, certain disagreement between those papers. That means if you have 20 papers, suppose you have 20 papers. Now in those 20 papers, 12 papers have similar view, a similar opinion. The author is having similar opinion regarding cyber security in online education. This is showing agreement between these 12 papers, that they have similar opinions, similar ideas. Now, if you have 8 papers which is not matching or aligning with those 12 papers, it is showing a kind of disagreement. Now, here this is we call as synthesizing. That means we compare, we explain, and then we try to find certain agreement, certain disagreement between the ideas. So we are looking for different ideas for our research, that is cyber security in online education. Now here example you see, suppose I have some I have 5 studies with me, and in there in the first study, all which talks about online exam which reduces paper use. Second study talks about online exam which save time. Third study which talks about online exam face cyber security risk. Then I have fourth paper that talks about AI based proctoring improves security. Then see fifth study which talks about student worry about privacy. Now how I am going to synthesize it? So for synthesizing, I will write the previous studies suggest that online examination improve efficiency and reduce administrative cost. However, concern about cybersecurity and student privacy remains significant. Now, here the research indicates that AI-based proctoring may improve exam, but further research is needed to balance the security with privacy. So here what you have done, you have identified certain agreement, certain disagreement, and also you have identified research gap. That means these ideas, already existing ideas, some have agreed with a particular opinion, some are disagreeing, but what needs to be done in the future, what is required to be done in the future. Now this is we call as synthesizing. Now why this synthesizing is important? So here if you will not synthesize, that means if you will simply write like this, here you see, if you will simply write that study 1 find out this, study 2 has this opinion, study C has this opinion, study D has this opinion, and study E has this opinion, this is called as survey. This is not called as review. When you are reviewing, you are supposed to use your critical analysis, and for the critical analysis, it is important for you to analyze, to compare, to highlight agreement and disagreement, and then only you can identify research gap. If this is not, if simply writing that this particular research, this particular study has find out this, in their study is a wrong practice. This is called as survey. This is not called as review. Review means you are using your critical analysis method for analyzing research. That means you are finding certain agreements, certain disagreements, certain ideas, and then on the basis of that, research gap can be found. So now here, that's why it is very important for you to synthesize research. That means this comparing, this agreement, this disagreement, this connection, this evaluation will give you a clear understanding of the topic. Now, a simple analogy that we have created here to make you understand better about all these 3-4 processes are, suppose you want to buy a laptop. Now, what you do? What will be your first step if you are intending to buy a laptop? So first step is to first you look for the laptop. Many laptops online, you have numerous choices, numerous options. Then you are, suppose you fix your budget, you have certain features of the laptop that you think it is important for in your laptop. So you will look for those those laptop that match your needs. Now, out of that also, suppose you have 10 company that is matching your need. Now, here you also have to identify and select what is relevant for you. That means which laptop price and feature is best suited for you. Compare all of them, you will compare all of them, and then you decide which one you are going to buy. The same process we follow when we do literature review. So first of all, when you are doing literature review, background reading is very important. That means otherwise you will not be able to find keywords for your search. So first, if I'm going to study about cyber security in online education, first thing I will do, I will study about cyber security. I will read about online education. Background is important. Then I will go for search. Then I will identify the literature. I will conduct a literature review, and then I will, with using the synthesizing method, I will try to find certain research gap. Now, example here you see that it is clearly written. So now next example that we can take to understand literature review is, suppose you want to do research on impact of social media on mental health of college student. Now you have done background search, background study, now social media on mental health, and you have searched and you have find out 20 research articles. Now the first research article is saying is about spending more than 3 hours daily on social media increases stress and anxiety. Second study talks about social media helps students stay connected with friends, reducing loneliness. Third study, it is about educational use of social media improves learning and academic performance. Fourth study, it is about cyberbullying on social media, how it negatively affects students' self-esteem. Now, how you are going to synthesize it, how you are going to write it. So here, how I'm going to write it, I will write what previous study has to say about social media, what agreement, what disagreement, what positive, negative effect it has on college student. Now, here I will examine the research gap that although they have studied on stress, anxiety, and low esteem, but very few study talks about how this type of social media influence students' mental health. Now, this is how you can identify the research gap through synthesizing the research. So when you are trying to understand the idea, when you're trying to compare the ideas that you can find in different studies, when you're trying to find out the agreement, the disagreement between the ideas, then you will try to say it and you will try to justify in your research that what is your research gap. So here, where while writing your research gap, it is very important to establish your research idea on the basis of all these steps. So first is to formulate, first is to identify what are you going to look for in your study. What is your objective? What are you going to look for? Search, then identify, read, summarize, compile, analyze, interpret, and reference. So this is the way we do literature review. This is the 4 steps we basically follow in literature review. Now, how literature review is different from literature survey. So here's simply summarizing the previous study. It is called as survey. Suppose I have find 5 things in different ideas in 5 study. I'm simply writing that first study is mentioning this, second study is mentioning this. This is summarization. This is not literature review. Literature review is when I will try to compile all the ideas, and on the basis of compilation, I will try to reflect or highlight where is the agreement between the ideas, where are the disagreement between the ideas. So there's a difference between survey and review. Now, survey is basically defining, just summarizing, just writing, this researcher has find this, researcher has find this, that's why I am intending to understand further this topic. This is survey. This is not review. Review is basically to identify the strength, weaknesses, and research gap, not merely mentioning that what previous research has done. So here they survey here when we are talking about review explain why it is important to conduct the present study, why it is important for us to conduct the study on cyber security in online education, why it is it, what is the relevance of it, and a very analytically, very critically, very by showing agreement, disagreement, strength, weakness, we try to explain it. It's not just simply we'll write, this is the research that the previous researcher has done, this is what is the summary I'm giving, and that's why trying to do more research is needed, that's why I'm doing it. This is not the way to do literature review. So if you are doing literature review, please keep this in mind that you need to be very critical, very analytical, very critically by showing the strength and weaknesses of your research, you are supposed to identify the research gap. So here in the example, you see, survey is basically mentioning that Sharma has found this, Khan is basically studied this, Singh has studied this. This is the survey. Now, if I'm writing this review, I will write that how previous studies had examined it, how they have, what are the strengths and weaknesses of the previous study, and why there is a need to further explore this particular topic. Now, here I'm showing my research gap. Here, on very critically, by in a very systematic way, by following a particular procedure, I'm showing why it is important for me to address this research gap. So here are the some of the questions your literature review must answer. You must keep these questions in mind if you are going to do literature review. Why do we already know? What do we already know in the immediate area concerned? That means existing knowledge. What we already know, what we know about cybersecurity, what we know about online education. Why? And second is, what are the characteristics or the key concepts or the main factors or the variables? So we need to understand how previous studies have defined this concept of cybersecurity. Third, we need to understand the relationship between key concept, factors, variable. What is the relationship between cybersecurity and online education? Next, what are the existing theories? Now, it is very important for us to understand the theory behind it. That means if I am studying a topic that is related to cybersecurity and online education, I must look for some theory that is supporting my ideas. So, what are the existing theory that is somehow supporting my ideas is very important for me to understand. What are the inconsistencies or shortcoming in our knowledge and understanding? Now here, when you will understand the existing knowledge, you will automatically come to this idea that oh yes, all those these previous study have explored these topics, but there are something which is still missing. So what is missing? That is shortcoming. You need to understand what views need to be further tested. Now, what is the present need of the society? Why I am doing this study on cybersecurity in online education? So you can understand that what happened then during this examination, how it is important for us to understand this whole scenario. So here, what views to be needed? So I'm showing the relevance of my study to my reader. What evidence is lacking? What need to be done? Inconclusive, contradictory, too limited. So how I'm going to study, which aspect I'm going to highlight. Why study the research problem? Why this research problem is the need of the day? Why I'm going to study it? What contribution can the present study be expected to make? Now, if I'm studying this particular topic, what contribution I'm going to make to the society, for policymakers, how it is going to reflect it? What research designs or methods seems unsatisfactory? Now, we are also looking for the research gap, not only in the ideas and opinion, we can also look for the research gap in the research designs and method. So please keep this in mind before doing your literature review. Now, when we are doing literature review, the basic purpose, main purpose or motto of literature review is to find the research gap. Now, what is this research gap? That means by churning the ideas, opinions, comparing, evaluating, showing the strengths and weaknesses, following a stepwise procedure, here we are getting to our point why this is required. Now, why am I focusing on research gap? Now, here it is important because your research is going to be published, and you are, if you are doing a research on something which is very, you can say, outdated, which is very, you can say, which is not the need of the day, here nobody is going to read your research. So you, it is very important for us to spend our maximum time or maximum in our research in finding this research gap, because here what the editor will see, that or when you are going to publish it, the editor will see which part or area you are trying to focus on. This is your research gap. So as per as a researcher, my suggestion is that invest your maximum time in finding this research gap. It is very important. Now, what is this research gap? So as I told you, we do literature review to find, to bridge a gap between known and unknown. That means what is the existing knowledge and what we need to know. So this is the unknown part, that means the research gap, which is missing, which is unclear, which is unresearched, which is unanswered. So here, the bridge is literature review. Bridges literature review will try to fill the gap between known and the unknown. So main purpose of literature review is not just synthesizing your idea, but also to come out with a new perspective, with a new you can say new research that is needed. And here, this is the need which you will show to your editor, that why this paper is important, why it is relevant, why I am doing research in this particular topic. Now, there are different types of research gap that we are going to identify in this, that we can identify through our literature review. The first is empirical gap. What is this empirical gap? So if you are doing research, keep this in mind, that we are going to find out a research gap. Research gap can be of different types. Now, first is empirical gap. Empirical gap means when you are trying to find, claim that although the study has been made in this particular topic, but the previous study has not focused on the collecting particular evidences or data. That means they have reviewed it, but they have not proved it on the basis of any empirical data. So here, this is an empirical gap. That means you can conduct surveys, interviews to understand this particular topic. So this is a research gap that you can show to your editor, that why my research is important, because I'm trying to fill this gap where there is further research is required on the basis of empirical data. Next is knowledge gap. So when we are talking about knowledge gap, that means somebody has explained the concept in previous research, but but somehow it is not being fully, now you can say, explained or fully showing the understanding of the present knowledge. So here, suppose I am talking about gender discrimination or women empowerment. So there are numerous studies that is has described these terms, but whether this there is a need to redefine the term with the changing in this concept of how the society look at these concepts. That means how women empowerment is changed, concept has changed with the change of the society. So new society has new ideas. So there is with the new ideas, we need to redefine every concept. So here, it is important to understand this knowledge gap. That means the thing that is clearly missing, understanding that is clearly missing. Next is evidence gap. Now, evidence gap means researcher basically try to find a gap which when new finding contradict the earlier research. So here, suppose there is two researcher has done a study on online learning. First researcher is saying that online learning improves academic performance. Second researcher is saying that online learning reduces academic performance. Now here you see you have two conflicting ideas which is just opposite of each other. So here you need to understand this with the help of the evidence gap. Next is theoretical gap. So no study can be done without the help of the theory. For every study we need to explain the existing phenomena with the help of theory. Now suppose you have done you are trying to do something new, some topic is very new and no theory is done is has explained that particular concept. So suppose I'm trying to do research on workplace loneliness in virtual workplace. Now here the existing studies have defined traditional workplaces but not virtual. Now in this case what happened? That these theories are there, but these theories are not has not defined the virtual workplace. So there is a need to have develop a theoretical framework for virtual workplace. So here virtual work. So here this is a theoretical gap that you can identify through literature review. Population gap. So population gap is basically when you are trying to identify the group or the population that has not been studied earlier. So suppose I am trying to study about climate change on large farmer, but when I go through the literature, what I found that many of the literature has talks about large farmer and populate, and they have conducted their study on the large farmer on the basis of their survey, on the basis of the data, but the small farmers or marginal farmers are totally ignored. Now here I have identified those section of the society which is not being studied much. Now this we call as population gap. That means the population which is missing, I'm trying to do my study on that population. Next is implementation gap. So when we are talking about implementation gap, that means something which is recommended, you have through your study, you have recommended something, but it is not applied effectively in practice. So here, that means there is implementation gap. So here, to we again understand that suppose their research related to cyber security guides improve online education. Now, many universities do not implement these guidelines properly. Now, here research recommend inclusive education. However, many schools still lack facilities for students with disabilities. So here it is there. It is already in the guideline, but implementation is not there. So you can identify the implementation gap also. Next is methodological gap. Now, when you are doing the study, you can find that for a particular study, the researcher has used a certain method, quantitative or qualitative. Now you try. Now you can also claim in your study, you can find a research gap that no studies have used a mixed method approach. That means combination of quantitative and qualitative study. So here when they are not using quantitative and qualitative study, that means this is a gap which you can fill through your research. So here if you are looking at all the summary of the 7 research gap, you can find empirically basically means lack of evidence and data, knowledge means lack of concept, evidence means when findings are contradictory, theoretical means when theories are not adequate, population means when certain groups have not been studied, and implementation means when research findings are not applied. Next is methodological gap. Methodological gap means when previous studies has used limited research method. So these are basically the research gap that you can identify through your research. Now here in this discussion, if you try to understand, this is the simple way to understand, to remember the 7 gap on the basis of evidence, concept, conflicting finding, no suitable theory, missing group, and in no proper implementation, or wrong and limited method. Now here, the thing that we have discussed in last half an hour is basically how we can conduct literature review, what is the purpose of literature review. So here we try to understand that why it is important, how it is different from survey, literature review is different from literature survey, and how we can conduct the study and how we can find the research gap. Now, next is we try to find out the key purposes and sources of literature review. Now, what is the purpose of literature review? We have already discussed it, but it is very important. For first, you need to understand the subject knowledge is very important. Before studying any topic, it is very important for you to search to understand the subject. Now, what are the different search engines that we can use for literature review? So different search engines that we can use, you can use Google Scholar also, which is also an authentic method for doing literature review. You can use different scientific databases also, such as Scopus. You can use Web of Sciences also. You can use Science Direct. You can use Springer Link. You can use JSTOR, Sage Journal, Taylor and Francis, WillyPub online library, and a directory for open access journals. So all these databases are important, where you can just go and type your keyword and you will get numbers of literatures related to that particular topic. Now, this is the second part, which we also call as gray literature. Now here, researchers also use other sources to publish research. That means not only through the databases, but also other, you can say, repository for, you can say, policy documents, guideline, publication, which we can use, which we call as gray literature, which you can use for doing research. So first is you can use reports, you can use such as United Nations report on sustainable development goals. You can use health reports published by World Health Organization. You can use policy reports published by European Union. You can use government national policies, census report, official statistics, government and ministries. Not only this, you can also use professional organization or bodies such as bar council, medical council, or professional association. Now these literature we call as gray literature. So here basically in all the databases, what we basically focus on, what type of sources, literature sources we focus on. So we focus basically on research articles, we focus on review articles, we focus on edited proceedings, edited books, conference books, chapters, conferences, thesis, textbook. We also focus on online and electronic based articles, newspaper, magazine articles, technical reports, preprints, and scientific posters. So these are the sources which we use for our literature review. Now, here, the another important thing is that you are searching, so it is important for you to know what are keywords. So keywords are basically the words that are using for your search, and here now you can say the important phrases that you can use for your literature review. Now, how we can use this keyword, how we can search, how we can you can say do the search very effectively. So one of the method which you can use for doing search is Boolean operator. So here researchers basically use Boolean operator to improve their search. That means if you are using certain databases such as Web of Science, such as Scopus, such as PubMed, such as JSTOR, here when you go in and type your keyword, they will give you different options of Boolean operators, such as they will provide you, and that means if you are trying to find cybersecurity, you can use and, that is a Boolean operator, and you can add another keyword that is online education. Or you can write, then what will happen here when you're using cybersecurity and online education for your keyword, here the database will show you all the articles that is related to cybersecurity and online education. That means it is mandatory for the database to show you these two words in your article. Now you can use another Boolean operator, that is all, or. When you're using or, that means you are trying to understand. It may or may not be reflect in your article. It will be the database will show you. So here, for example, suppose you are using student or learner. Now here he will show you the article which has mentioned student or learner in their and the article in their paper. Not here, you can also exclude certain article. That means you don't want to include. So in cyber security and online education, suppose you don't want to include the keyword such as AI or not healthcare. You want to use AI but not healthcare. So you can use this word not to exclude the words that will not reflect in the searches. So here the example is basically if you are trying to understand the impact of social media on student, I can use the search social media and student and mental health. Now this concept will help you to in your search for literature review. Now here what we do, first we try to choose certain keywords for certain databases, then we apply filter, and then we download relevant paper. This I will show you by using certain databases. How we can do this by in any database in Scoopers on Web of Science. I will demonstrate this particular steps to you. Now here, basically, we are trying to understand the process of finding our paper in the different databases using the appropriate keywords and Boolean operators. Now, we have already discussed this idea that how we can start literature review with background reading, how we can frame our keywords, how we can identify our search, and how we can conduct the search. So here, this is very important for us to use this Boolean to when we are doing search. Now, how we can collect the result, and how we should and how we can synthesize our research. So when you are reading any particular article, what you should keep in mind while reading. So first you need to understand that what is the research problem. What you will look for a particular article when you are reading that article. So you need to understand the research problem that is mentioned in that particular article. What the author is trying to focus on. Second, you will look for what are the objective and research question of that particular article, what method the author has used, and what are the main findings. What is the conclusion did the author reach, and what is this? How is this study relevant to my research? So what with the practice we usually do, we make an Excel sheet, and in Excel sheet we make it 6 columns, and in every column first we write the name of the author, then we write this is the author, this is his research problem in 2 and 3 keywords, this is research objective in 2 and 3 you can say points, this is his research method, this is his main finding and conclusion. Now I will try to prepare a master sheet. Now this master sheet will basically help you in doing your literature review while writing. Now this is very important for you to prepare a master sheet in Excel by using all this question in your while conducting your literature review. So here we have understood that what is the search gap, how we can do research, which databases we can use, what sources which we can use. Now you have identified the step and procedure to do literature review. Now it is also very important for us to identify the paper which is very relevant for us, which is we consider as a high quality research. Now, how are you going to identify the research paper which is you can say, which is very relevant or significant for your search, for your literature review? Now, after finding many research articles, the next most important step is to apply the filter. Now, how you're going to apply the filter and try to find out the research article which is very important for you. So first we will, if the paper is written by any known or reputed author, we try to understand that this is the author which have mentioned this, which have written this article. So that paper, that author is paper is basically, we are trying, is very reliable and influential. So first is author's expertise. So we'll try to try to include those paper which is based on known or renowned or reputed authors. So this is called as author's expertise. Second is citation count. Now here you see citation count. Suppose I have searched on Google on any particular topic and I got this, the result in which first one article has 2500 citation and another article has 18 citation. Now in this case I'm going to use 2500 citations article because this is the article which is very important and influential in that particular field. Next is quality of the journal. Now, when we are talking about quality of the journal, we will also look at the impact factor of the journal. Now, the journal which is very reputed, which is published in quartile 1, which is and has an impact factor of more than 4 or 5, we consider it as a reputed journal, and then we are trying to include all the papers that was published in a high, you can say, in a journal which has a high impact factor. Next is relevance of your research. Now, even the article is highly cited or published, it is very important for you to identify the relevant of your research. Now, as a researcher, it is your duty to identify whether that particular article is relevant or not. So, if you are working on a topic that is cyber security in online education, so here the relevant article for me is AI-based proctoring in online exam. And the article which is I find less relevant is basically based on cyber security in online education. So here, if I'm trying to understand on the basis of AI, I will use the first article, not the second one. So because the second article does not address directly online education. Now, next is H index. Now, when we're talking about H index, that means we also see the authors or researcher and H index. H index basically means the number of publication an author has written and how often those publication has been cited. So here an author with an H index of 60 has produced influential publication and generally regarded as leading expert. So I will see if the author has on, if you will see on Google Scholar, if you will see on Scoopers, you will find this H index of the author. Now here, when you will find this H index of the author, that means the author is reputed in this particular field and his ideas is basically shared in this field and he has a high H index. So here we will also include those articles which has high index. So what are we doing? We are identifying those articles which are of very high quality. Now here, how you are going to evaluate a research article. So research article is basically how relevant that particular article, or you can say how aligned is that particular article is with my research topic. First. Second, you will look for whether this particular article is published in any reputed journal. Third, is the author experienced in this field? Fourth, has it been cited by other researchers? Next, is the research method appropriate and reliable? So if you find the answer of most of the question is yes, then you think that this article is basically suitable for your review. So it is very important for us to identify those articles which is very reputed, because it will reflect in your reference section also. When you are going to cite it, when you are going to see, when it is reflect in your reference, the editor will identify that you have studied those articles which are of which are published in high quality journals, which is of high quality. Now here, so high quality literature is basically selected by evaluating the relevance of the study the credibility of the journal, the expertise of the author, and how it is going to influence the research through measures such as citation, impact factor, and H index. Now, next is we are going to look types of literature search, how we are going to do the literature. So here, there are two types of ways in which you can search the literature. That means broad way, and you can do broad search, and then you can do narrow search also. Now, broad search we do when we try to explore the area which is very new. So it is we are not very it is not much explored topic. So here we are doing a broad search. That means we are trying to understand everything that is related to it. So for this we use very general keywords for identifying. Suppose we are trying to understand what is the relationship between artificial intelligence and education. So the keywords that we are going to use is school education, higher education, online learning, AI tools, and teaching methods. So it is a broad search that we are going to do. Next is narrow search. Narrow search means when the researcher has a specific research question. I am very specific. I have made my mind that I have want to work how AI is influencing legal education in India. Now, I'm not talking about education. I'm very specific. I'm talking about legal education. So here, legal education it is called as narrow search. That means I will only study AI in Indian law schools. So here it is called as narrow search. Now here basically the types of literature sources you can here you see you can do other type of literature search also, which we call as theme centric literature search. Now, here we are, if you're trying to understand a broad theme, a general topic rather than a specific topic, concept, here it gives a large number of results and must later filter. So here what we do, we are trying to use a broad theme or general topic. We are trying to understand, suppose we are trying to understand cyber security. Now, cyber security and education, or you can say social media and student. So here we are not looking for a specific. We are trying to generalize it. We are trying to make a understand a large topic. So here thematic theme centric research search is basically to understand the broad topic. Now, second is concept-centric literature search. Concept-centric literature search basically focus on main concept as variables of the search, such as the concept of the research or the used keyword or the used keywords. For example, the impacts of workplace loneliness on employees' performance, or uh, so here what we are trying to do, we are trying to understand the main concept and variable. So here this is called as concept centric. Next is approach centric literature search. Approach centric literature search focus on particular research method or methodological approach. For example, qualitative research, quantitative research, case study. So suppose you want to study about farmers' experiences of climate change using interviews. Here you can just use the keyword climate change and farmers and qualitative interviews. Now, how it is going to help you? Here, you can find the studies that are used a similar research method. So your approach is clear. You want qualitative study, you have used the keyword qualitative study. So here, this is called as approach-centric literature search. Next is author-centric literature search. Now, suppose I want to work on a particular researcher or influential author. Here, what I will write the name of the author, and with the keyword, suppose Robert Putnam has basically worked on social capital. So I will use the research keywords Robert Putnam plus social capital. Now here, what I am doing, I will only study those articles which has published their work on social capital and had mentioned the work of Robert Putnam in social capital. Now next is journal centric literature search. Now here in journal centric literature search, you are focusing on particular academic journal which is basically published in that research field. Now, suppose I'm trying to work on Indian foreign policy. Now, sir, some journals which is focusing on such as published some journals such as Journal of Strategic Analysis, which is basically focused on Indian foreign policy. Here, what we do, we try to put the name of the journal along with my topic, that is Indian foreign policy. So this is we call consider as journal centric search. Next is period centric literature search. So here in period centric literature search, which will limits your search for a particular period. Suppose I want to do literature review for last 5 years or 2 years. So I can use the filter and I will do research. I will try to study the research papers which are published only during that you can say duration, and this is called as period centric literature search. So if we see theme centric, which is based on broad topic, concept centric, which is based on concept and variables, approach centric, which is based on research methodology, author centric, which is based on particular author, journal centric, which is based on particular journal, and period centric, which is based on publication period. So here the theme you must remember that the theme is basically related to broad area, concept is related to specific idea, approach is related to method, author is related to a particular author that we are looking for, journal is related to where it was published, and period then when was it published. So we can do literature review by using different literature review techniques. Now, there are some notable literature review approaches also. So we do literature review when you are writing any literature review, you can say any paper, you can use these methods, notable literature review approaches in your paper. Now, what are these notable literature review approaches? So first we start with narrative or traditional literature review approaches. Now, in this narrative and traditional review approaches, we focus only on the theoretical ideas, theoretical framework, or focus on the writing context. Which we call as what is already been published, how the theory has defined it. So it is called as traditional, or you can say narrative literature review. Next is systematic review. Now, systematic review basically we do when we have very specific research question. Now, after you can say examining the background of my topic, what I will do, I will identify certain research question. Now, I am very clear in my mind that I am going to focus only on these research questions. So these type of review is highly rigorous. That means I'm going to do research and do the literature review only on those papers which is fitting my research question. Suppose I am working on how farmer perceive climate change. Now I will do the research using the Boolean operators, and then I will try to find out the literature which is talking about perception, which is talking about climate change, which is talking about climate variability. So I am very clear in my mind that I am doing literature. I am trying to find literature review only related or aligned to a specific research question. This is we call as systematic review. When you are writing any paper for any journal, you can write that I have used this systematic review method for writing my research, for writing this particular paper. Now, next is integrative review. Now, integrative review basically what we are trying to do by using the existing knowledge, by using the existing ideas on any, you can say in any field, we try to build a new idea. That means we are trying to blend different ideas, and on the basis of that, we try to propose a new idea. To propose a new idea in that particular field, that is integrative review. Next is semi-systematic review. Semi-systematic review is when you are examining the data and output the other scholar have answered, and to answer to a specific research question following a partial systematic review. Now what are you using? In systematic review, you have questions which is very new, which is very specific. Here in semi-systematic review, what are you going to do? You are already trying to answer those such question which has already been used, which has already been used by other scholars in that particular field. Next is scoping review. Scoping review is, that means here you are trying to understand everything related to that particular topic, that we call as scoping review. Now here, if what I'm trying to show you that these notable literature review approaches, we mention it in our paper, that we have used integrative review, we have used scoping review, we have used systematic review, which method, which approach we have used for writing our paper. Next is interpretive review. Now here we are, when we are just trying to interpret what other have written on that specific perspective, we call it as interpretive review. Now please do mention all these approaches in your paper. If you're writing any paper or journal, please write these approaches that you have used, these approaches for your paper that you are supposed to publish in any journal. Iterative review, where we are trying to collate all studies in a specific field based on algorithm. Umbrella review, that means we are trying to understand, you can say, a topic, a broad understanding of the topic by in a very short period of time. We're trying to understand everything, every overview of that particular topic, a comprehensive idea of that particular topic. We call it as umbrella review. Rapid review, that means when you don't have enough time and very quickly you try to understand or gather information, you can do rapid review. Next is meta-analysis review. Meta-analysis review is basically based on the argumentation or draw direct conclusion from the published work. That means suppose I have published suppose different empirical works has been done on any particular topic. Now what I will do, I will try to analyze their data published in different studies, and I will try to analyze it, that the data, or you can say the facts that is published in different work. That is meta-analysis. And next is meta-synthesis review. Meta-synthesis reviews basically try to find the qualitative, analyze not the data, but the findings or the ideas or the concept. Next is bibliometric review. Now, bibliometric review is basically we try to understand the overview, or you can say the how a topic has evolved over a period of time. We use bibliometric review. Suppose I want to understand that how what is the change in, or you can say how climate change has impacted agriculture. Now, if you see, it is not the impact of climate change, and the idea is not new. It is already much explored idea. So what I will do, I will try to go to the databases such as Scopus or Web of Science, where I will use such a certain search string, and by using that search string, I will try to analyze the study which is published between 2015 to 2026 and see how the studies has tried to understand the impact of climate change on agriculture, and how much authors have contributed, which perspective they have contributed, how much citations they have got, which is the journal which is publishing the much, you can say, which is publishing the large quantity of paper on this particular idea, and what, in which year it was published, in which year there is a peak, in which year there is a, you can say, low. So I will give what methodology they have used. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to analyze the paper which is published in last 10 years, and look everything about the topic of evolution of you can say evolution of that topic from the last 10 years, that is impact of agriculture on climate change. So this evaluation of topic, that means how much people or authors have contributed in that topic, that I will do in bibliometric review. So here, very simply, if you try to understand, narrative review is about previous research, systematic review is about specific questions, integrative review is about integrating different existing research and proposing new idea. Meta-analysis is about comparing data published in different paper. Bibliometric study is about understanding the trend and evolution of any topic. Meta-synthesis is about the comparing the experiences and theme, and interpretive review is about explaining and clarifying different ideas. So here, when we try to understand the method, there is no best literature review method. How you choose this method, there is no best literature review method. The choices are basically depend upon your research question and research objective. You can use qualitative method, you can use quantitative method, you can use mixed method, you can have different approaches. So which approach you are going to use is basically based on your research objective and your research question. So a literature review method approach is a method of researcher used to collect, evaluate an existing literature, and the choice of approach depends upon the research question and objectives of the study. Now, next is literature search techniques. So we can use different techniques and different search techniques for understanding the most relevant literature. Now, first is manual searching. That means you are visiting library, you are looking just as we do in earlier days when we don't have internet, we don't have connectivity, we go to the library, we search through books, journals, magazine, hard copies. So here when we're talking about manual searching, that means you are searching by hand, visiting any library, checks the latest issues, that is manual searching. Next is citation searching. Citation searching is basically you are trying to search through the citation. That means, suppose if you type any topic in Google Scholar will show you number of time that article has been cited by different authors. Now, when you click on that, you will find who cited this article, and you will find different papers related to that particular topic. Now here what you will do, you will try to understand which newer study discussed this topic, how this was developed over time. So suppose you read a famous article on workplace loneliness. You click cited by 120 in Google Scholar. So if you click cited by 120, now you have 120 new studies that are used and discussed for that article. So this is called as citation searching. That means you are using citations for further study or further discussion of that particular article. Next is theme searching. Now, so here we are not using a particular individual keywords, we are using a particular theme. Suppose we are talking about climate change. So if you just put climate change as a keyword for searching, it will retrieve different articles such as global warming, which is very, you can say, similar or synonym to climate change. Global warming, carbon emission, environmental sustainability, carbon adaptation. So this we call as theme search. That means search by subject. Next is spider searching. So spider searching is basically making a connection, following a connection of research paper, just like a spider that moves along its web. So here there are three types. First is backward spider search. Now, when you will see an article, you will find references of that article. Now you read a published paper in 2025, its reference list contains 50 earlier studies. That means you are studying something which is published, suppose the article was published in 2025. So here in backward spider search, you are studying the paper which is published before 2025. So you are going backward. You are reading about older references. You want to understand the topic better. So in that condition, you go backward and understand the older references. Next is forward spider search. Now, so forward spider search basically means if I'm looking for any particular author, I will do the author search, I will find the article of particular author, and I will read all the publication related to that particular author. That means it is connected. If I am studying an article published by Dr. Rahul Sharma, that means I will search it and I will read all the articles that is published by Dr. Rahul Sharma. So next is sideways spider search. Now here, if you will search for a particular pair, you can say paper, a particular article, then you will find different connected articles to yours. Suppose you read one paper in cybersecurity in online education. A database here suggests you similar and related article. There is also there's an option which is reflecting in the database that if that similar articles, related articles. If you will click on that link, you will find all the articles that is as published on the idea that is cybersecurity and online education. So you will find similar ideas. So here this we call as sideways spider search. Now next is truncation and wildcard searching. So truncation and wildcard searching, where researcher try to find or search by using different spellings of a word. How you will do this? So basically truncation is basically where you are using an asterisk. So if I am doing a research on Scoopers, what I will do, I will write the word. I want to use the. I want to search on therapy. So I will write the word therapy and I will put an asterisk here, and result will show me every word related to the word therapy. Therapy, therapies, therapist, therapists. So here it just means if you are putting an asterisk replaces but the different endings of a word, that will show you all the word related to it. Now suppose you want to study about education. So here by removing ION, you are using an asterisk. So when you're using an asterisk, the result will show you every word that is related to education. Education, educational, educating, educator. So here that means finding all words ending. Here that this is called as truncation. Next is wildcard search. So wildcard search is basically we find different spelling of the same word, such as we use British English, we use American English. So here, if you are using the word, then they will retrieve you all the papers that is related to British and American spelling, that we call as a spelling variation. So that means finding a spelling variation, that is wildcard search. Boolean operators, we have already discussed that how we can do search on the basis of and, or not. And I will demonstrate you here today that how we can do Boolean operator search. Now here we can also, by doing search in any database, you can use the quotation mark. So the data what will happen when you will use this quotation mark? Quotation mark, the databases will try to retrieve all the exact phrases related to social isolation. So it will not show you the article which is published on individual isolation. So here they are focusing mainly on the exact word in the exact order. That means they will focus only on the word that you have put for search in and that particular database. So if you see summary of all these searches, so basically in manual search, we look for printed books. Citation, we look for whom it is cited by. Theme, we look for broad subject. Backward spider search, we look for the reference which is published before. Forward spider search, we look for the same author. Sideways spider search, when we are trying to understand any purpose. Truncation, when we are trying to use different by putting asterisk. Wildcard search, find spelling variations. And Boolean search. So these all search, it is very important for you to understand the tip and tricks to do search. So these are the very important way through which you can do searches, and it will refine your search. It will help you to retrieve and filter the article which is relevant for you, which is required for your publication. So here the technique of literature review are very using relevant search by using searching keywords, citations, themes, authors, journals, and related publication such as Boolean operator, truncation, wildcard, and exact word phrasing. Now, I think most of you have understood that what is literature review, how we can do literature review, what are the different types of literature review, what are the different approaches of literature review, what are the different techniques of literature review. Now, this after this, there are some common problems or mistake we normally do when we are doing literature review. Now, what we should focus on, how we can mitigate them. So the thing is that the typical problem in literature review, you need to understand why it is difficult for many students to write a literature review, or you can say why literature review is there, why they focus more on literature survey, not on review, or why the literature review become biased or incomplete or poorly organized or lack critical analysis. So you need to understand this, what are the problems that you should keep in your mind, what are the points that you should keep in your mind before doing literature review. That the mistake we typically, or problem that we typically face while doing literature review. So common problem and solutions we must discuss as we are discussing literature review. So first is that when we do literature review, most of us, what we do, we just summarize the studies. That means we don't try to analyze it, we don't try to compare it, we don't try to find the contrast. We simply try to analyze, we simply try to mention what author has said. Simply try to define, this author said this author said this. That's that's why I'm doing this study, because it is not done. This is not the way to light literature review. Second, most important point, that the purpose of literature review is to find the research gap. Now here the research gap, you are doing literature review, but you are unable to find a research gap, you are unable to find unanswered question. So here most of us, what we do, we are do literature review, but we are not focusing on some research gap that we can identify. So next is using poor quality sources. Now you are doing research literature review, and for doing that you have used any journal, any published, any peer reviewed journal, any unreliable website, any unauthentic source. Now what will happen? That means your idea is not constructing properly. You have used unreliable sources. So by as you are using an unreliable sources here in this condition, you are not you will not try to reflect on the thing, or you will not able to understand what is important in that particular field. So it is very important for us to use credible sources such as Cooper, such as Web of Science. And here, that's why we try to prefer the high quality journal, which has high impact factor, reputed authors, which has high index authors. So we are focusing on the high quality journal, not any random article from the internet. Next is poor organization. Now, when you are writing a literature review, it is very, please keep this in mind, as if you are a student, please keep this in mind, that maintaining a link is very important. Just to mentioning ideas is not important. Maintaining a link between the ideas is very important. If I am talking about, in first paragraph, I am talking about gender empowerment, and second paragraph, without connecting how it is related to gender discrimination, I simply started writing gender discrimination, then it will lead to poor organization. That means I have not tried to make a link between these two paragraphs. So ideas must be presented in a logical flow, rather than in very vague way you mention everything without making a link. Next is outdated references. As I already told you that it is very important for us to maintain the references. That means we cannot rely on the studies which are outdated. We cannot rely on the studies which is published 1 decade back. Now, what will happen? Even if you will try to study it and you will mention it in your reference, next moment the editor will ask you to replace these older references which was published 10 years back and with some new recent publication. So please keep this in mind that don't never use the papers which is published last 5 to 10 years, sorry, which is published before 10 years, which is not appropriate. Next is personal opinions instead of evidences. Now here it is there's no place for your personal opinion, your ideas, your values, your prejudice, no, or you can say your notions in research. Research is a very neutral process. That means we can't argue that this is what I think. This is what think that it should be. We can't do research on the basis of personal opinion. Everything, every single sentence that we write in the literature review must be supported by certain evidences. We can't write any single line in the literature review without evidences. You cannot say that this is how I think. Next is incomplete literature search. Now, suppose I'm working on any topic, and by using certain keywords or Boolean operators, I'm using Scopus database, and I'm not using the Web of Science. Now, what will happen? It will the then what will happen? I will try to find my research will somehow be polarized. That means I have not covered all the articles that is relevant and important for that particular topic. So it is very important for us to cover at least 2 databases if you are doing research. Otherwise, your research will be incomplete. The editor or your reviewer will question why you have searched only one database. Why not other? What is the reason? So next is lack of critical analysis. Now here we just cannot mention any article without finding its strength and limitation. That means if I am studying any article, I have first to try to understand what objectives or what purpose the author is trying to fulfill in this paper and what are the limitations. So here if you see, normally in any paper the author mentioned about his objective also, and certain limitations are also mentioned at the end of the paper. So you will first you cannot do critical analysis without understanding the strength and weaknesses of the paper. So that is also important point. So here if you see, some of the literature review challenges are unstructured approach to literature often lack critical appraisal of included sources. That means conducting research, it is very important to conduct research in a critical way. That means that if you are not following a literature review process, your whole research will be invalid. It is vague. You have to follow a proper process for doing research. So it is a very systematic procedure that we follow while we do research. Lack of replicability in literature review. Now you have that means if we are doing literature review, we are trying to understand that this is the objective that the author has framed, and on the basis of these objectives, these are the outcome. So if we are unable to understand all these, we cannot you can say recreate the same study again in that particular field. Lack of relevance. That means if they have poor techniques, lack of relevance, if the paper is outdated, it is also a challenge. Selection based on inappropriate techniques, wrong evidences, it is also a challenge. Inappropriate synthesis, it is also a challenge. That means synthesis must be, and so your synthesizing must be logical, must be evidence based. Now, suppose we take the example of poor literature review, such as Sarma studied online learning, Singh studies online learning, Khan studies online learning. So this is only a summary. It is a survey. Now, good literature review is when you try to identify on the basis of certain evidences the strength and weaknesses. So here we can write previous studies shows that online learning provide flexibility and improve access to education. However, these studies mainly focus on urban universities, while evidences from rural institutions remain limited. So this is my research gap. So most of the studies on quantitative survey indicating a need for qualitative research to understand experiences. Now what I have done, I have compared studies, I have identified a population gap, rural areas, rural institution. I have identified a methodological gap. That means most of the studies use quantitative survey rather than using qualitative survey. So I will write, explain why further research is needed. So if you want to write a better literature review, first thing is important, the search the literature systematically. Select relevant and high quality studies, read the article carefully, compare and synthesize the finding, critically evaluate the study, identify the research gap, use evidences to promote, support your argument, and present the idea in a logical and organized manner. So, if you see that good literature must be do search systematically, evaluate, compare, synthesize, find a knowledge gap which can create a strong foundation for research. Now, besides this, there are three common traps in literature review. What are the common traps? If you are a beginner, as a new student, or you can say as a new researcher, you are trying to do literature review. These are the three common traps in literature review. First, what we do, we try to read everything. So focus on the most relevant and significant study. Don't waste your time, don't waste your resources. Try to focus on the studies which is very recent, which is very you can say significant, not every publication. Next is reading, not writing. Now start writing. While you are doing literature review, make some columns in an Excel sheet and write what are the objectives, what are the methods, what are the findings, and what are the limitations. This will create a Excel master sheet for you for doing research. So start writing while doing research. Writing will help you to connect ideas. You will think about it. You will connect your ideas. You will try to identify the relationship, and then only you can refine your understanding. Next is not keeping bibliographic information. Now you keep on reading one after another papers. You don't have any idea how much paper you have studied. Now what happened when you will start writing? Again, you have to go to that paper. Again, you have to study it again, because if you are not recording it, if you are not keeping information regarding it, you will forget what you have read, and you will just try to reread it again and again. So the information, these are the three common traps in literature review for a new, you can say, researcher. Now, next and the most important part is how we can do literature analysis. So you can do first is that you can do manual analysis also. Suppose you read 10 articles on social media and a student. You notices three common themes such as excessive use of social media, mental health problem, and academic performances. Now what you can do, you can group all the findings under three themes and you can write. You have identified three themes. If you read 10 articles, you read it, you group it, make it group, and write yourself. That is we call as manual analysis. Next is software based analysis. So researcher can also use software to analyze many articles, organize it, recreate it to visuals, maps, compare it. Software is especially useful for reviewing hundreds of articles. Software that you can use is Atlas T also. It is NVivo also. NVivo is much used for qualitative research. Here what you can do, researchers first try to download the article which they think is relevant. Now you open your software, you import your article in that software. That article will highlight the important text, create a code, label them, organize them, and write notes and comments. Now, when you will start writing your paper, you can take help from all these systematic process, these notes, comments, and themes that the software has identified. Now, suppose you are working on the topic workplace loneliness. You have downloaded certain paper. Now you import this paper and Vivo. And Vivo will help you organize interview response into the themes such as remote work, lack of communication, and social support. Now, instead of doing manual searching and manual analysis, what you can do, this software help you to identify the themes. Now, once you have identified the theme, you can write your paper on the basis of all these identified themes. Next is Prisma method. Now, when we do systematic review and meta-analysis, we basically use this method. This we call as preferred reporting items. Now, Prisma is not any software. Please don't get confused. Prisma is not a software. Here it is a reporting guideline. It is a checklist. If you will just go on Google and you will type Prisma checklist, you will find certain checklist of Prisma, which is important for you to check if you are doing systematic review. Now, what are these guidelines that we will discuss? I will show you how we can do systematic review by using Prisma checklist. So Prisma help researcher how the articles are selected, import inclusion and exclusion criteria, present the screening process using a flow diagram. You will go and simply type on Google Prisma, you will get a flow diagram also. And here it will ensure a transparency in the review process. Suppose you search 100 articles on Scoopers. 200 are duplicate, removed it, 600 excluded, and 100 article are accessed. 40 articles are included in the final review. So Prisma flow diagram clearly follows certain steps. Next is Leximancer. Leximancer is also where we can analyze large amount of data. So here, if you are using Leximancer here, basically it show the relationship between concept. It will make a visual map for you for creating concept and how you can connect these concepts. So these are important for if you are doing any kind of qualitative analysis, qualitative review. Now let's see how you can use Prisma. You can say do systematic literature review using Prisma. So, so we have to follow certain steps if we are using Prisma method. So first I will show you how we can do Prisma, how we can use Prisma method. So first let's discuss this step, then I will demonstrate how we can use it. So first we need to identify our research topic and research gap. So convert that topic into a specific research question. So what factor contribute to amongst isolation among IT sector employee in digital age? So what we have done, we have converted the topic to a specific research question. Now we have to decide our research protocol. So, but deciding that research protocol, we have analyzed the database, Scoopers, Web of Science, PubMed. Now, what you can do, let me show you how you can do it. Now here, there is some problem with the Scopus, it is not working. So I have used the database that is Web of Science. So here in this database, what I have done, I have identified certain research string. So what I have done, so I have used that search string, just pasted that search string which is basically based on Boolean method. So here you can see that I have used this particular um, I've used this particular, you can say, search string, which is basically climate change or climatic change or global governing. So here I'm using the Boolean, that is climate change or climatic change or global governing or climate variability or climate risk or climate extreme. Now again have used another Boolean, that is and. You can add here also. Here is also example where you can Booleans are given, so here you can boolean, these are boolean operators where you can add. So here I have used and here, and then I have started my search by using this string and agriculture or farm or agriculture production or crop production or crop yield or crop production farming system. What I am doing here, I am using the method which is, sorry, keywords which are very similar. So here what will happen, the database will retrieve all the papers that is basically mentioned food production or farming or crop production or crop yield. Now again I've used another boolean, that is and here. So here you see I have used an asterisk mark also. That means the spelling that is basically related to that particular topic, particular word will also reflect. Here you see everywhere have used an asterisk or consequences or vulnerable here or productivity or yield or adaptation or resilience or climate structure. So this is the boolean that I have used. Now here you, from here you can select or type topic, title, author, publication, whichever you want to select. So here I have selected topic. Now after this I have researched it. I have used the search engine. I have searched it. So once I have searched it, here you can see the total result I have got is 39,937. Now, as we have already discussed here, that we are supposed to use not the data which is published before 10 years. So I am using the data of last 10 years. As I'm doing systematic review using Prisma, I'm using the data of last 10 years. So it is 2026, 2025, 24, 23, 26, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, and 16. So I have used, here you see, I have included this data for my research. Now here I have refined it. Now here you see the total number of result is 35,000. I have filtered it down on the basis of the year. Now you have to note down every step. That means when you have searched the search string, you find 39,000 data. After that, you find you after using the filter of year, the data is basically 35,508. You have to note down every step, that what filter you are using and how many data you are retrieving. Next is, suppose I want to work on the type of document. What type of document I will include in my research? So here I will include article, review article. I'm not including meeting, dissertation, thesis, book, early access. These things I am not including in my systematic review. Now here again I can use this as a refine. After using this filter, the article or the database, as you can say, data that I have got is 31,795. Now you see, based on research area. Now I will move to research area. Which research area is basically suitable for my research? So as I'm working on climate change and agriculture, I will remove this area, that is dermatology, radiology, transportation, astronomy, philosophy. I will remove all these from my research. Nuclear science, uh, respiratory system. See, I'm removing all this. Sports science, construction, building, these are things are not important, ontology. So I will remove all these things from my study because these things are not important for my study. So I'm again going to the search area, and here so if the number of you can say research area that you can exclude is more than the number of research area that you can include. So I'm trying to identify those area only which I can include. So I'm choosing environmental science, ecology, agriculture. Then I'm choosing water resources, food sciences, biodiversity conservation, which is I think which is important for my study. Then I will look for another any other research area which is can be relevant for my study. I'm not getting any other research area which I think is relevant. So what I will do, I will include only these areas. Now you see 29,424. Here again I will note down this step. Now how what will I will do? Then I will go for publication sources and article. Now I'm if you are looking for any journal, if you are looking for a particular journal or particular you can say sources, then you can click it. Otherwise, there is no need to exclude from this uh, particular section. Now language. So yes, we are going to define the language that we are going to use in our study. So we are using only English language. So I have refined it on the basis of the English language. Again, I have noted it down that on the basis of English language, I have I have filtered out the research paper. So now how many is article? To 29,203. Now next is research domain. So if you go to the research domain, you can also find the research domain which you think is important for your research. So I think the social sciences is important for my research. I'm from social sciences, and rest I am excluding. So I have done again applied a filter. Now the total number of data that I have is 17,179. Now here you see that I have 79,000. Again, if you want, you can use other filter also. You can use other filter related to research also. So here, if you are going for a research domain, I think I have already applied social sciences. So it is social sciences. I have done research in, I'm doing research in social sciences. So I have 17,179 documents with me. Now, what I will do, I will try to download it from the Google from Web of Science. Now, Web of Science will not allow you to download more than 500 paper at a time. Now, here what you can do, you can go to export. You can download it in plain text file, or you can download in Excel. Here, if I am clicking Excel, here they see that record it from 1 to 500. So choose I will choose 499 documents, and I'm going to if I'm title source abstract all. Now I'm going to export it. So I have exported it. So I have everything here related to that particular journal, article abstract, every all the information related to that particular paper I have. Now I will filter it out from here, which is particularly important for me. So if you see Prisma is basically a guideline. If you just type Prisma flow diagram, you will get flow diagram here also. Prisma flow diagram is freely available on the internet. If you want to download it, you can download it. See, I have downloaded a Prisma flow diagram. This is a Prisma flow diagram. Now here, what I will do, I will write the database first. I will write the databases here, such as Web of Science. Web of Science. Now the number is how many article I have retrieved. So I will write the number is 39,910. Now here I have used you can say I will follow the process. So here you see the records screen. After screening the record, or
Screen is frozen, ma'am.
it is not visible.
It is visible, but it seems to be frozen. Uh,
Okay.
we can see on the Prisma screen on 39. What you said, we didn't find that you have written somewhere.
Okay. Okay. It is visible now.
Yeah, ma'am. It is visible, but it seems like it is not moving.
Let me share it again.
I think maybe, madam, if students have any questions, it maybe we will explore in the next lecture. I know that you are continuously now 2 hours you are speaking on it.
Okay.
Yes, let them look at it and let the students should ask questions or clarification, because you constantly speaking 2 hours and students have many doubt, many
Yes, sir.
clarifications if they
Yes,
can
sir.
ask, so it's better. I think if you want to just explain this table and then you just stop, then maybe we'll open for discussions. The students have any doubts on that.
Okay, sir.
Now the flowchart was visible, ma'am. What you have shown.
Okay. So this is the flowchart basically, which you can download it from Prisma website, and here you can also download some checklists. Here you can see first you need to identify the record that you have you got in the first search after using the search string. Then you have to if you are using beside Web of Science, you are using Scopus also. You can write the additional record identified through the sources. Now here, then you can write how you are going to filter it by using the year, publication, languages, research area. So here, what steps you have followed for filtering your ideas. You can use this flowchart where you can write how you have duplicate removes, how you have screened it, what full text is basically available, or you can is assessed for eligibility, which how many studies you have included for your qualitative synthesis, and how many studies you are going to use for your study. So this is basically where you can identify screen eligibility and included. So this is the Prisma diagram which you can use, which is easily available anywhere on the internet. So I'm just wrapping this lecture. If you have any question, we can discuss it.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the session. Actually, after doing the systematic review, I still feeling like how to develop that critical thinking from the research gap, like how to connect the dots, like